The final session of the second round of talks between the official Syrian Arab delegation and the coalition delegation ends without reaching an agreement on the agenda because of the coalition's intransigence. Massive demonstration is organized in al-Shaghur neighborhood in Damascus to express support for the Syrian Arab army in confrontation of terrorist groups. Syrian Arab army units continue to chase terrorists in various governorates. About 16 Iraqi policemen and soldiers are killed in a series of terrorist attacks in various areas. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Irado Krikorian with the news in English. Syria's permanent representative to the UN and a member in the Syrian Arab Republic delegation to Geneva, Dr. Bashar Al-Jaafari, stressed that Syria's official delegation did not save any efforts despite the difficulties and obstacles it faces. Al-Jaafari stressed on the necessity for finding a political and peaceful solution to stop the bloodshed in Syria and reaching a credible understanding. In a press conference, Al-Jaafari said that Syria's official delegation agreed at the beginning of today's session on the draft project of the schedule submitted by the UN envoy to Syria Lakhdar al-Brahimi, as our agreement raised the concerns of the coalition delegation, where they started to raise their own predictions about the implementation of this schedule. The Syrian official delegation insisted on discussing every single item of Geneva communiqué to reach an agreement to move to the second item, but we were surprised that the coalition delegation want to deal with the first item, which is fighting terrorism and rejecting violence in a formality discourse, as we see such act as a huge mistake in the mechanism of negotiations, the matter that gives the impression that fighting terrorism is just a minor issue. Al-Jaafari added in the press conference that Syria's official delegation won't save any effort to make these round negotiations of Geneva a success, with an open mind and positive spirit, because we are concerned with fighting terrorism as it is the main demand of the Syrian people. Al-Jaafari said that Ibrahimi did not put the responsibility of the failure of the negotiations on Syria's official delegation, and he was a witness over what happened in the sessions as the dispute started with the coalition delegation started giving their own prediction of the schedule.
The point was that the Syrian government's delegation accepted from the beginning, within the first 3 minutes of the meeting, the agenda proposed by the international mediator, Mr. Al-Brahimi. We did accept the agenda, the draft agenda of the meeting. The point, the problem was raised immediately by the other side when they gave their own interpretation of the agenda. And this is where the problems started raising in the meeting. The other side gave his own interpretation of the agenda by saying that there is no need we finalize the first item. There is no need to fully finalize the first item. We will give it one day for discussion, and then we will move to the other item, which is the interim government.
But Ambassador, we all heard Dr. Brahimi say this was his proposal.
Yes.
One day on one day on the other. Why don't you accept his proposal?
Can you watch the cameras, please? Thank you. Watch the cameras, please. Thank you.
We don't accept this for a very simple reason. We said that once you have an agenda, you should respect the agenda fully, without any interpretation or misinterpretation. Hold on. Hold your horses. Hold your horses. We said that we cannot move from one item 1, to item 2 or item 3 or item 4 without fully considering this item and concluding by a common vision of this item by the two sides. Something that the other side objected to by saying, no, we don't agree with this reading. So they wanted to dictate their own interpretation of the agenda in a very wrong way. And this is where the problem started between the two sides.
Earlier, a joint session between Syria's official delegation and the coalition delegation in the presence of UN envoy to Syria Lakhdar al-Brahimi was concluded at the UN headquarters in Geneva. The official delegation said that the final session of the second round of the talks of Geneva II conference ended without reaching an agreement on the agenda because of the intransigent stand of the coalition delegation. The insistence of the coalition delegation to ignore the suffering of Syrian people and its rejection to recognize that there is terrorism on the Syrian soil hindered the possibility of reaching a common ground between the two sides, despite the openness of the Syrian official delegation and its readiness to discuss Geneva communiqué an item by an item. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Gennady Gatilov said the Syrian official delegation wants the coalition's delegation to show commitment to fighting terrorism in cooperation with the Syrian government before other issues are discussed, including the transitional government. In a press statement published by Russia Today website, Gatilov indicated that everyone recognizes the existence of a terrorist threat in Syria, where large numbers of terrorist groups such as Jabhat al-Nusra and al-Qaeda are active. He said that counter-terrorism efforts should be done before embarking on other issues, affirming his country's willingness to back any agreement reached between the Syrian sides. Syrian Arab Army, in cooperation with the National Defense Forces, completely controlled the areas of Al-Maqbara, Fallaha, Al-Villat Al-Humar and Al-Abid in Al-Hasaka countryside in preparation for a wide military operation to put an end to terrorist groups deploying in the countryside of the city. Units of the Syrian Arab Armed Forces carried out operations against terrorist dens and gatherings in several areas of Aleppo, killing and injuring many of them in addition to destroying their weapons and ammunition. A military source said that the Syrian Arab Army units killed scores of terrorists in the old city of Aleppo and the neighborhoods of Al-Marj, Bani Zayd, Karmel al-Muyassar, Hanano, Bustan al-Qasr and Sheikh Lutfi, in addition to destroying their equipment. The source added that another Syrian Arab Army unit repelled terrorists attempt to attack Carlton Hotel, killing and injuring all of them. Other Syrian Arab Army units inflicted heavy losses upon the armed terrorist groups in the villages of Al-Awaji, Hayyan, Haritan, Anadan, Rasm al-Abboud, Al-Jdeide and the area surrounding the central prison. Citizens of Ash-Shaghur in Damascus took to the streets affirming support to national stances and the Syrian Arab Army, which confronts the armed terrorist groups to restore security and stability to the homeland. They affirmed their adherence to national and pan-Arab principles, voicing complete support for the official Syrian Arab delegation to Geneva conference. With wide official and popular participation, the Quneitra Governorate organized a mass rally on the occasion of the 32nd anniversary of the national open and general strike that came in response to the Israeli decision to annex the Syrian Golan. The activity was held in the area of Ain al-Tine, opposite to the occupied Syrian town of Majd al-Shams. The participants stressed that the Golan is an Arab Syrian land and that its people are committed to the Arabism of their land, challenging all Israeli attempts to Jewish the land and people. Al-Quneitra Governor Ma'an Salah ad-Din said in a statement that the struggle will continue under the Syrian leadership and army until Syria is victorious and all of the occupied Golan is liberated. In turn, head of a Tawheed party in Lebanon, Wahab Wahab, hailed the steadfastness of the people of Golan, who did not abandon their Syrian nationality even after 45 years of occupation, appreciating their support to the Syrian Arab army and leadership. Concerning Iraq, 16 Iraqi soldiers and 7 policemen were killed during clashes and terrorist attacks in many areas. Sources from the police showed that 5 policemen were killed and 2 were injured by an explosive device near an oil pipe in PG. Moreover, a colonel in the police was assassinated by armed gangs in his house in Tikrit, as another armed gang attacked a vehicle with soldiers near Tikrit. So 4 soldiers were killed and 3 were injured. Finally, Russia's permanent representative at the UN, Vitaly Churkin, called the European Union to be committed and do not interfere in the internal affairs of Ukraine as to stop the threats of imposing sanctions against this country. During a meeting in the Security Council, Churkin said they share the view that the way out of this crisis must be found by the Ukrainian people themselves, as he hopes that this idea will consistently be fulfilled in practice without any threats of sanctions or competition on promoting European values or players about who will comprise the ministers in a future Ukrainian government. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Nariman Qassam, but after a short break.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. In order to ease the pressures on the kidney hospital of Damascus, the Ministry of Health delivered 5 new devices for dialysis. It is to be mentioned that the kidney hospital provides free services for kidney patients as pressures increase during the current crisis, specifically after the high number of visitors, which ranged between 1,000 to 3,000 per month. The board of the Drought Fund has discussed its plan for 2014 to compensate the affected farmers and livestock breeders. The fund manager asserted that the fund has granted 46 million Syrian pounds to the farmers during the past year, adding that about 1 billion and 300 million Syrian pounds have been allocated for this year in order to reduce the drought effects on the agricultural production. The Economy Ministry has started implementing the industrial cluster in the free zones of Latakia Governorate, throughout allocating 13 industrial textile companies in Aleppo that were affected by the current crisis. On the other hand, this step aims at enhancing the local production as well as re-employing the labours of those facilities through cooperating with the Syrian industrial chambers. Furthermore, the Ministry is cooperating with the UN Development Programme for providing portions of land of the industrial facilities with needed technical equipment within 60 days. The Director General of the Marketing and Storage Establishment declared that the establishment has planned expanding its sale halls and outlets to serve all the Syrian areas. He also asserted that 30 halls have been opened in the past 4 months, as about 20 others will be opened during the next 2 months. On the other hand, the total number of the sale halls in Syria was estimated at 250. The Director General of the Real Estate Bank explained that granting loans is related to positive progress of the liquidity index, as it is related to the liquidity rate as well, which should reach 20% in Syrian pounds and 30% in other currencies. He also underlined that a bank office has been opened in Al-Adawiya area in Homs Governorate 2 days ago, as new offices will be opened in the service centers in Homs. The General Establishment of Sugar has allocated 80 million Syrian pounds for the investment plan for this year, including 60 million Syrian pounds for the yeast factories. On the other hand, about 20 million Syrian pounds have been allocated for sugar companies and the project of Ferzat cream, in addition to making the required maintenance work. Moreover, the establishment director said that the plan includes producing 146,000 tons of sugar, noting that this plan is related to the agricultural plan, which includes supplying about 1,360 million tons of sugar beet. Konaitra governor has opened new bakery in the governorate, which produces about 15 tons of flour per day, as it provides more than 100,000 citizens with bread. The governor also stressed the importance of keeping the bread quality as well as supplying the citizens with their daily needs of bread. On the other hand, the director of the domestic trade at Konaitra governorate asserted that the sanctions will be strict against the traders who manipulate bread. The Charge Committee for preparing a draft for the Decree number 99 for 2011 has discussed the different ways to ensure the needed lands for housing associations and the possibility of establishing a cooperative service fund. On the other hand, the Ministry of Housing asserted that it is working to ensure the needed lands through finding areas of real estate development on the government property, asserting the importance of developing the current rules and regulations that govern the work of the Housing Cooperative Federation. Ladies and gentlemen, this was our economic news for today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.